Have you heard that podcast where Joe Rogan interviews Steve Jobs? The one that was completely fake, generated entirely by AI, that was trained on interviews that Joe Rogan's done and Steve's done? It was actually pretty good. Aside from some little bit of weirdness at the beginning and a couple of odd sentences, it was surprisingly convincing. Here's an example of some of the weirdness.
So super psyched about having him in the house today. First time, or yeah, we've had you on before, but not for a long time. You're like Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore in Ghost. You're a memory from the past.
But check this out. This actually sounds pretty good.
How do you stay on your toes? You've been in the computer industry for 40 years. How do you keep from getting lax?
Because I recognize that we live in a competitive universe, and companies that are not doing a good job constantly get overtaken. In terms of things we do, I think we still have the best product or the best operating system. But you've got to keep on top of it, and you've got to be perfecting it.
That's pretty convincing. What does this mean for podcasting? What does all of this generative AI that's coming out mean for all the creative arts like illustration, photography, and filmmaking? A lot of people are saying this is the end, but I disagree because there's one human truth that AI just can't get through. Let's talk about it. There's a moment in the Steve Jobs, Joe Rogan podcast where Steve is telling a story about being on a plane with his wife, Liz, and talking about the meaning of life and like the bigger things.
I was on a plane flying home with Liz, and we were talking about reincarnation and ESP and whether there is anything more to this. And as I was thinking about it, lying in my seat, I thought about our children, because I always knew, like, if we had a daughter, for example, I knew that she would really turn out to be, I don't know, sort of weird or very ambitious.
As I was listening, I thought, wow, this is really cool. I've never heard this story before. And then it occurred to me, that's because it never happened. It was created by a computer. There was no airplane. There was no conversation about this. And Steve Jobs' wife was Lorene, not Liz. But does that matter? Should that matter? It was still an interesting story. There were still some life insights in it, potentially, but it did matter. Something just didn't quite feel right. It's the same kind of uncanny valley that we felt around humanoid robots, but now we're feeling it around humans generated by AI. This is where we can start to create two types of buckets for experiences. Those that deal with the outside world and those that deal with the inside world. The outside world represents things like the news, locations of things like on a map, facts and knowledge, things in the world around us that we need to know to go through our days. The inside world is what's happening in our minds, emotions, ambitions, fears, anything we have in that conversation in our minds. When it comes to understanding the outside world, information from any source in any form is really good enough. But when it comes to understanding our inside world, that's when it's important to have it coming from somebody that we can relate to, somebody that's like us, someone that feels close to us. Consider two hypothetical podcasts. One is a news podcast that tells you all about the stories of the day that you need to know about. The other is an interview podcast where people come on and talk through the difficulties they've overcome. Think about which one you would be okay being delivered by an AI. For the first one, that's just delivering the facts about the news, it probably wouldn't matter too much, right? For the second one, that gets at something a little bit more personal, that one probably wouldn't feel the same if you knew that it was a computer that made it up completely. This is the human truth. We're always looking for meaning, belonging, and emotion, and we can only get those things from other people. And the more we can relate to someone, the more we trust them. There's a great saying, the first person to put the emotions into words leads the group. Look at any leader across history, good or bad, and you'll see that what they did was they connected deeply with the emotions of the people at the time. Even though AI is touching our lives in all kinds of areas, we can see that people are only accepting it in certain places, in those outside world kind of places. Gmail Smart Compose, you know that feature that writes a little bit of the next line that you have to write in an email? At first, people freaked out, but then they got cool with it. Because the truth is, most emails that we write are transactional and kind of meaningless conversation. Then we have these generative AIs that make images, like DALL-E and Midjourney, that are being used all over the place. But for the most part, they're kind of on the periphery. They're not the main content. They're kind of window dressing. Another popular use of AI is writing text. So AIs like Jasper that write blog posts or Facebook ads or different marketing copy. These are all also very much an outside world application. They're just for businesses to communicate about their products. They're not hitting anything really personal. And to the degree that they are, there's people coming in and fine tuning all that text. So to answer the question, is AI the end of podcasting or illustration or filmmaking? The answer is yes and no. If you create content that just brings information from the outside world, there's a good chance that AI is going to take that away from you. However, if you create content that connects with something deeper inside people, then you're more than likely safe. Because here's the thing. If it's out in the world, AI can use it as a training data set. But our thoughts and our feelings and all of our personality quirks, those are safely locked away in our minds, where AI can't touch them, can't train on them, and therefore won't be able to ever replace them. Hope that was interesting. See ya.